Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Come on, get loud with me. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm so happy to be here with you all this morning. My name is Corier. Yes, Corier. I am from LA. I'm happy to be here. This is great. What grade are y'all in?
Eighth.
Oh, I remember the 8th grade. I remember the 8th grade. 8th grade was lit. But I'll be honest, like, I was a horrible student. Y'all. Like, all throughout middle school, all throughout high school, I was a horrible student. And it was weird because I knew that I had so much potential for greatness. But it was almost like in middle school and high school, it was like cool not to care. I don't know. At least when I was in school, it was cool not to care, right? Like, oh, you're studying? That's corny. You're a nerd. That's whack. But like, if you failed your test, it was cool because we all failed together. Isn't that crazy? But that's how it was. And so I was a horrible student, but I had this desire to like study and be smart. I like really wanted to be smart. I knew that I was smart. I knew that I had the potential, and I knew that I could potentially have the discipline to be great. But it was weird because I was in a culture that told me don't try that hard because it's corny. So I was a horrible student. And so I don't know if that resonates with any of you guys, but if it does, there's hope. So amen to that. There is hope for you. So I'm from LA, like I mentioned. I went to LACES. Have you guys heard of LACES? Los Angeles Center for Enriched Studies. Like a nerdy school now, but back in the day it was lit, right? So it's right off of like Fairfax and Venice. It's a small school, 6th grade to 12th grade. I was there all 7 years, but again, I was a horrible student. And so I had this desire to go to college. I wanted to go to college. I wanted to get out of the city. I was like, I'm tired of LA. I wanted to get away from my family and start a new life. And so when it came time for me to kind of prepare for college, I didn't have the grades to go anywhere. I hadn't put in any work, so I had very limited options. And I wanted to do a lot. Like growing up, I had big dreams. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, so I'll just say I wanted to do it all. I was like, okay, I want to be a fashion designer. I want to be a veterinarian. I want to be an archaeologist. I want to be, did I say archaeologist?
Yeah.
A children's psychologist. I had all of these dreams. I wanted to do all of these things, but I had never placed myself in a position for success. So when the time came for me to go to college, or at least start considering colleges, I was like, okay, I might have to just do the junior college route, which is great. It's a great option, but I knew I wanted to get out of LA. And so I ended up applying to Arizona State University. I mean, have you heard of Arizona State? It's a good school. It's a really, really great school. Academically and socially, it's a really good school. So I was blessed enough to be able to get into Arizona State. And so I made my way there, best 2 years of my life. But when I got to Arizona State, I decided I was going to do things different. I wasn't going to be the same girl that I was in high school and in middle school, and I wasn't going to care, because I was like, no, I want to dig deep inside of myself, and I want to live in the potential that I know God has for me. And so I committed myself when I got to Arizona State, and I said, okay, I am going to go so hard for what I want, especially because I come from a single-parent household. I'm the youngest of 4. My mom raised us, and I knew that she had sacrificed tremendously to get me to Arizona State. My mom had to pay out of pocket for college. Okay? And so that's a lot of money especially if you're out of state. And so my mom paid out of pocket, so I was committed. I was like, okay, I'm gonna do my thing. I'm gonna study. I'm gonna get straight A's. I'm going to completely turn over a new leaf. I'm gonna set up myself for success, and that is what I did. So I was at Arizona State. I was there for 2 years. It became very financially hard for my mom to the point where she called me and she said, Corey, you have to come home. I can't afford for you to be there anymore. And it broke my heart. But I knew that God had a plan, right? I'm like, God has a plan. And so I ended up having to come back to California, And there was only one school, because I was like, okay, well, what school am I going to go to? There was was only one school with the application open at the time, and I had 1 week to complete it. And I'm like, well, this is a stretch, but I guess I'll just apply to this school. I mean, it's kind of like the best school in Los Angeles, but do I really have a chance of getting into this school? Because I felt like even though I had accomplished so much at ASU, my high school and the middle school girl in me didn't feel like I was worthy of going to this type of elite school. And so I applied to USC, I got into USC, and so I ended up finishing out my college career at the University of Southern California. So go Trojans.
Woo woo!
Okay. But just like a vet, I'm a lifelong learner. So I had all these ideas again of what I wanted to do with my life, and I was still trying to figure it out. So I majored in sociology, and I had this desire for business. So then I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna throw some business on that. Give me 1 second, I'll answer your question. I'm gonna like add some business on that, but then I'm like kind of artsy. So I was like, oh man, like I'm really into photography. So I do photography on that. And then I was like, I really want to like study abroad. So I found an opportunity for me to be able to study abroad. And so I lived in Thailand for 6 months. And it was wonderful. It was great. Study abroad. We can talk about that. I think that's really good. But all of that to say, I guess, is that one, regardless of where you are today and how you feel and the challenges that may be in your life, I want you to know that there's still hope for you. I want you to know that you don't always have to have the right answers. You don't have to have the right career path, because this thing happens in life where you're on this path and then God will pivot you into something else. And I also want you to know that every single thing in your life that is a deep desire for you, that you're interested in, that people will probably laugh at, if you're like, dang, like I'm just a gamer. I just want to be a gamer. But you're like, oh, but I also kind of want to cut hair, but I also have this desire to be like a tour guide. It's okay. Like you can do it all. In fact, we live in a world where you can literally do it all. You don't have to choose anymore, right? Like my parents' generation, they had to choose. They found a good job and they stayed at that job for 40 plus years, and that is what they had to do, and it's a great thing. But because of the sacrifices they've made, we now, living this age of technology, have so many opportunities at our disposal. There's no one path fits all, one cookie cutter way of doing things. You have the ability to be a dancer and a doctor, to be an accountant and a candle maker, to work for California Edison, but also be heavily invested in the community. You can do it all. And so all of these things that I have wanted to do in my life have led me into, so I was in business right out of college. I was working in customer service. I was working in hospitality. I've worked at bars, and I've been bartender, and I've been training managers and project training and national recruiting coordinators. And I've done so many things, all which has led me to be a pastor. Yes, thank you. I was waiting for that. It's great. I love that. Yes, so currently that is what I am doing. That is what I am called to do. That is the purpose of my life, and I love it. God's completely saved my life and changed my life. And I know that sounds crazy. It's not a career, right? Like, you're not going to say, oh man, like, let me calculate how much money I can make by doing this, and then you go into it. That's not how this works. However, I am saying that every desire that you have that's in your heart, God will bring out at an appointed time. And again, it's okay to do things different than anybody else before you has done. There are no pastors in my family, okay? There are no leaders in that sense in my family at all. And so it took a lot for me to step out and say, okay, God, I'm going to follow you regardless of what people think about me or what they have to say. And it took me a long time to get here. I'll just say that. I went through a whole long process of what we call deconstructing the faith, like, oh, is God real? What do you believe? Why do you believe? What is it? All that. So I went through all of that, and it got me into this place. And so I just want to leave you with this. I want to encourage you guys, like I've been saying, that God will use everything in you. that you are by accident. You don't look the way you look. You don't talk the way you talk. You don't have the hair that you have. You don't have the smile that you have. You don't have the laugh that you have or the family that you have by accident. It's by design. And God's going to use all of it to pull out the greatness in you when the time comes. And so I want you to embrace it. If you like doing hair, do hair. If you like doing music, do music. If you want to be a tennis player, be a tennis player. If you want to do lacrosse, if you want to go fencing, if you want to be a fisherman, whatever it is, do it. And just watch how your life transforms and how everything eventually, all of those interests, all of those passions, all of those skills you learned at that job you thought was a silly job, it will all come together and you'll be like, wow, like nothing was wasted. Nothing was wasted. And so I'm going to open the floor. I know you have a question for me.
What is sociology?
Okay, sociology, that's a good question. I feel like I forgot. It's been so long since I've been. It's the study of people and human behavior. So, like, I'm a very social person. I love studying people and how they interact, different cultures. And so that's sociology. What's your name? Janaya. Yes.
Are y'all?
We're best friends. Yeah. I didn't know she was going to be here. Hey, girl. What's that? Any other questions? Yep.
When you were young, did you ever think you would be an astronaut?
Absolutely not. Are you kidding? What? And I always say that, you know, I'm like, look, I would have never chose this life. I didn't even see it, but I saw certain things, like my love for people. I saw my heart for wanting a better world and being able to meet people where they are and encourage them. I saw yes, like a lot of little, like random different things. I'm a teacher. Like, I love teaching. By nature, I love to teach. And so there were different pieces of me that now, in hindsight, I'm like, oh, it kind of makes sense. But when I was going through it, absolutely not. But God changed my life in a very drastic way, and so here I am. Yes, what's your name? What?
My name is Amor.
Amor? Nice to meet you. I'm sorry, sweetie? Oh, Kore. And then it's 2 E's, but there's an accent over the second E.
Can you write it on the board as a marker?
Oh, sure can. Oh, here they are. Guys, we're supposed to write our names here. Kore with an accent there. So Courier. Any other questions? Comments?
There's a question back here.
Oh, hey, sweetie.
Did it take you a long time to figure out what you wanted to do?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I'll be honest. Can I be honest?
Yeah.
Can I be honest?
Yes.
Y'all want to know the truth?
Yes.
I came today and I said, they reached out to me and they're like, hey, career day at Audubon. And I was like, okay, this sounds great, because I remember what it was like being in your seat and there was career day, people came and they spoke and it was great because you didn't have to do work, right? Let's be honest. But to be honest with you, I sat and I was like, I don't have a career. Like, what am I going to talk about? I don't really know what I should talk to the students about today, to be honest. Didn't I text you this morning?
Yeah.
I said, girl, we're going to see. Y'all drinking, you're like, we going to see. That was me. I was like, I don't know. But then as I was, I prayed before I do everything. So I was praying in the car and God was just like, just be yourself and tell them your journey. That's it. And so it might not be a formal career like everyone imagines, like I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, you know. But it's the life that God's called me to. And I want you to embrace that as well, right? Like, people have their own definition of what success looks like, of what a career looks like, but you have the opportunity to design whatever life you want for yourself. And like Yvette says, no one is better than you, and you're not better than anybody else. So you have the potential to work hard and design that life for yourself. Yes, maybe.
So I have 2 questions.
Sure.
The first question is, so in my class we've been learning about fate or coincidence, and so I'm kind of wondering through your experiences in encountered thus far, like, do you believe in coincidence guiding your life, or do you believe in fate and guiding your life?
I don't believe in coincidences. I feel like Fate is the word that we're using here, so I would probably say fate in that context. I don't believe in consequences. I think that everything happens for a reason. Even the things that are painful in our lives, even the things that are really uncomfortable, I think that they happen for a reason. And oftentimes you don't know what that reason is until later, and you look back like, oh wow, I had to go through that, or I had to meet that person. But ultimately, it all works together for your good. It does.
My second question was related to how you said, like, for cashiers, we can't look up their salary they make, obviously. So,
Oh, yeah.
how do you sustain yourself? Like, being able to afford, like, your clothes or, food, eat?
Yeah, that's a good question. So my thing has always been, and again, I know this stuff can be a little touchy for some of you when you talk about, faith in the church and things like that. So I don't want to trigger anyone, but I am committed to not living off of ministry. So that's a big thing for me. So when I am in ministry and I'm sharing or I'm talking or I'm teaching, it's me just volunteering for people. And so what that means for me is that, like, now, okay, so I've created businesses for myself, so where I can sustain my lifestyle. Okay, so I am an entrepreneur, but that's not what I want to talk about today, because we have plenty of entrepreneurs, and I was like, I'm gonna hit them with the pastor. What's up, girl?
In college, did time get hard for you? Did you ever feel like giving up?
Of course, yeah. So the question was if I ever felt like giving up in college. Absolutely. And so college is different from high school and from middle school because there's no accountability, or there's less accountability, right? So you're responsible for yourself. You don't have to go to class. You don't have to do your work. Right now you guys you're under a, what's it called? The guardian, right? You guys have guardians, so there's people who are like, no, you have to go to school, you have to do your work, you have to do this and that. When you go to college, 9 times out of 10, you're on your own. And so that being said, it's hard. It's hard to learn accountability. You have to really want things for yourself in order to be successful. And in the scheduling with the classes and stuff, it's a lot. You have to learn time management, you have to learn discipline, self-control. There are a lot of things that you're gonna learn when you get into that environment. And it'll take you some time to adjust. So even if, like, your first semester you don't do that well, a lot of people don't do well like their first semester, it's okay. If you don't take anything out of today, I really want you just to take, like, hope out of what I'm saying to you. It's not too late. Okay? Like, it's not too late to study for that test. It's not too late to try to, change your study habits so you can get into that college that you want. It's not too late to apply to that program. It's just never too late. It's never too late, you guys. And so you have the ability, again, to design whatever life you want to design for yourself. Any other questions? Comments? Remarks? Thoughts? What's up?
How is it being a pastor?
It's amazing. It's hard. It's very hard. And that's a totally different conversation, because it's also hard being a woman, right? So that's a whole nother thing. But it's very difficult because you carry the weight of everybody around you. Like, I spent a lot of my time at hospitals, spent a lot of my time walking with people through very difficult times of their life. And so also, I'll just add this, making the transition from the life that I had and the life that I have was very difficult for me, because I had my girls, and we're young, we're doing our thing, having a good time. You guys will know one day. It's fun, life is fun. And but then there was a change that had to happen in order for me to, like, become the woman that I am, and that change was very difficult for me. Very difficult for me. So yeah. So instead of, like, the fun, I got, like, the depression. It was like people weren't calling me to hang out anymore. They were calling me to pray for their grandparents And so it was a very tough shift for me, but it's the greatest calling in the world, so I'm grateful for it. Any other questions? All right, guys. So thanks for having me.
Thank you.